Hey, Pato. Hey, Pato. Hey, Pato, you are able to hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, perfect.
Yep.
Hey,
Thanks for joining.
Yeah, no problem. Hey, let me get to the kitchen really quick to get some water.
Oh, sure.
Good. Thank you.
No problem. Okay, I see a couple of audience joined already. So I see like 15 attendees are there. Okay, hey everyone. Welcome to Angular RTP Meetup session. So just give us a couple seconds or a minute so that others can join.
My friend, how are you doing this morning? Good?
Yeah, doing good. How are you?
Good.
Yeah, it's raining here. How about there?
Oh, it's raining too. Yeah. I live in Florida, so
Okay.
every day.
Yeah, it always rains in Florida.
Where are you right now? Are you in Raleigh?
Yes, I'm in Raleigh. Yeah.
Cool. I've been there once. I went there in August
Oh, okay.
because the company that I work for is based from Raleigh.
Raleigh. Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Let me share the agenda and other stuff, and then we will start with the talk. Maybe we'll give like a couple more seconds so that others can join. Okay. So let me quickly go through the session and agenda for the session and other stuffs. So we have two speakers here. So I'm going to be one of the speakers. And Pato, thanks for joining with us to share your knowledge on Angular for enterprise.
Yeah.
And thank you. And this is the schedule for today. So we will start with a quick welcome message. That's what we are on to. And then we'll move on to the talk by Pato on Angular for enterprise. And then we will have a quick quiz on Angular. And then we'll move on to the talk by me on PWA development using Angular. And we'll end the session with a closing. Okay. So this is the quick schedule for today. So don't think that, okay, what we are going to do in all these 2 hours, is that much, or is that too much, or is that very less? I mean, it differs from person to person. But usually we schedule this Angular meetup for 2 hours in Raleigh libraries in most of the cases. But due to this pandemic situation, we moved the event to online event, and that's why we open door to others as well. So we have participants from other part of the world as well. Okay, so to quickly introduce yourself, just say hi and the place where you are from. So I see like a couple of audience from India as well. So just say hi and the city or place where you belong to. Okay, so that we'll all know like where you are from. Okay. So over to you, Pato. So just give a quick introduction about you, and you can start with your.
Yeah. So I go by Pato, means dog, quack quack. That's my nickname. So feel free to call me that way. If you call me by my real name, I'm probably in trouble. So let's just keep it as that. And so yeah, I've been a software engineer for like 7.5 years.
Oh,
and
that's good.
Became a Google developer expert on Angular and web technologies in February, so not too long ago. So I'm pretty excited to continue helping the community. Thanks for the invite.
Thanks for joining us, and we are waiting to learn a lot from you on Angular for Enterprise. Okay, so we have a couple of people from Cary, India. Oh, we have some from Switzerland as well.
Cool.
Oh, cool. Yeah, we have Sanket from Pune. Oh, that's cool. Okay, so let me share your deck, Pato. So I will add it to your stream.
Awesome.
Yeah, and it's over to you.
So like we were mentioning today, we are going to talk about Angular for Enterprise. Create a singular Angular application with a CLI. Could be a piece of cake. All you have to do is just run a few commands and you can get your app running, right? But what makes an Angular application scalable, maintainable, and reliable for the long term, right? Especially when they're working with a lot of people, with multiple teams. This is crucial that you keep this in mind, right? So, like I was mentioning, I'm a software engineer, and you can follow me on my social media, the Pato, and so on Stack Overflow. I like to answer questions there. I have over I think 115 questions that I have answered on different topics, especially Angular. And I'm also a Auth0 ambassador. And I know I look pretty decent in that picture. And right now I look really ugly because I haven't got a haircut because, quarantine. So don't judge me. So let's get started. So let's talk about architecture overall, right? It is very important to do proper planning whenever you're working with a Angular application, right? Especially at the enterprise level. So imagine building a school or whatever without a blueprint, without planning. The school probably will collapse, right? If you don't have the solid structure of your school. So it's the same case with an Angular enterprise application. You want to have the fundamental things to make your application successful. So a few of the architecture considerations that you have to have are the 9 that appear on the screen, right? These are the 9 main things that will help you have your enterprise Angular application. So that way we need to think about when working with an app, but specifically on the enterprise application. So the app overview is everyone on the team has to have a clear idea on what they are building. Yes, we can code whatever you want, but if you don't understand what you're building, you're probably not going to have the assignments that they give you correctly, right? So it's really important that everyone in your team understands what they're building, whether it's a school project, whether it's a really big or small, doesn't matter. Everyone needs to understand what they're building. So another thing is app features. App features, in my personal point of view, are the core structures of your Angular enterprise applications. And I'm going to go more in detail about them later on. So logging, of course, I'm not talking about you putting console log and just going to the dev tools and see, okay, this is what my application is doing. It's using a proper logging tool. For example, AWS offers one of them. And so just do research on the one that fits better your application. Also, the services and the communication, right? As you can see right here. And in that aspect is knowing what are the services in your repo, right? What are they going to be fitting? What are they going to be doing? Because based on that, it's going to help you how you're going to manage your application. So the data models, that's another thing that you have to consider, right? Why? Because we want to create models that can be reusable, right? So always in the enterprise world, think with reusability in mind, whatever you do, right? Because like I was mentioning, an enterprise project is very big, so you want to make sure that you don't repeat yourself. So the other part is future components and communication between them, and always consider to be using the pattern of smart and dumb components. So I want to give a shout out to Dan. Dan is he's a Google developer expert. He's a really talented person. He has multiple courses on Pluralsight, and he was the one that came up with this image right here with the 9 core things that will help you have an Angular application, right? So we were talking about the feature modules. So let's get into detail about them. In the enterprise world, it's crucial to have a solid folder structure. And to do this, we have to understand what a feature module is. As Angular apps are made of modules that can import other modules, they naturally become the root folders that make our Angular application project, right? Each module will contain all the Angular entities and contain their own folders. Let's say we are building a car dealership application, and we create a car list module, and this is what the structure could look like for our application, right? So you could see that I have the car list, the components, I have the containers. The component in this case are the dump component, meaning all they're gonna do is grab my data and display it. And the containers are gonna be my smart components, which are the ones that pull the data from my service and maybe do something with it, message it, and then send it to the dump components. And right here I have my pipes, my services, and everything that is related to my car list module. And I have my car module right here. So I'm just going to give you an example. It's really important whenever you're working with modules that you group things together on features, right? So I'm just going to give you an example. You have the car dealership. You have cars and you have employees. Employees don't belong to the car part, right? So why are you going to group them together? So try to do the separation of concerns on that aspect. So whatever is related with employees, I don't know, maybe the HR department or their job title, that is related to the employees. And then maybe the cars, the colors, the models, and so on, they're going to go inside of the card list module. So with that being said, we need to talk about the shared code. When we're talking about shared code, especially shared modules, components, and containers, we have 2 kinds. The first one is app shared code, right? Which are the ones who only live inside of your application, but they need to be shared across your project. I'm going to give you an example. So let's pretend that you, let's say that you have a search bar for the cars, right? That search bar, you can reuse it across your application, right? But it's not going to live in a different project. So nobody's going to reuse this search bar that is specific for the cars, right? So now you have the project's shared code, right? Which means it's a specific code that is being shared across multiple applications, which is a very common scenario when it comes to Angular enterprise applications. I'm just going to give you a very simple example. a navigation bar. Let's pretend that you're working for X company. I'm just going to say Google, right? So Google wants all of their projects to look the same when it comes to having a nav bar, right? So instead of in every project creating a nav bar, and the next project you create a nav bar, and the next one you create a nav bar, you're going to have one nav bar, and it's going to be shared across all these projects or applications. So an app share code, destructive, I mean, it could look like this. It's not necessarily the way you have to do it, but you can do it this way. So as you can see, I have, again, this is the code, like I was mentioning before, that is always going to be shared inside of your application only, right? So you have components again, you have containers, you have your models, like interfaces, you have your other modules, you have pipes, services, and you have your styles. Like I was saying, you can reuse them across this application. So what about the rest, right? Let's talk about now code that could be shared about multiple projects. So that's when I'm going to introduce libraries and monorepos. When you are using highly reusable services or components, which can be classified as service modules, widget modules, you might want to build these modules as an Angular library, right? Which can be either be created in their own repo, right? And or in a larger monorepo, which I'm going to talk about the difference between those two right now. And either you can publish them on an enterprise registry, like I'm going to show you, or they're going to live in your monorepo. So let's talk about more in detail about the Angular libraries. You might be wondering, how can I create an Angular library? Well, thanks to the powerful Angular CLI, we can do this in a very easy way just by running the following command. So as you can see, it's ng generate library is a keyword, right? The same way you do ng generate component, right? In this case, it's library, and search lib is the name of my library that I'm building for this scenario. So in non-technical words, a library is a Lego block that can be shared to be used to build more Lego things, right? So if you take a look to the Legos usually have a core piece, which is this tiny block, right? Think about it as a library. So we're search, like I was mentioning, search lib is the name of your library. So now, like I was telling you, the libraries are being used in shared projects, right? So the way to do this, right, the first way that I'm going to teach you how to do it is using an NPM enterprise registry, right? When doing current services, components that can be reused across different teams, projects, and that they ideally don't change very often, we might want to build an Angular library. For example, the navigation bar. I mean, what are the odds of a company changing the color of a navigation bar from, let's say, from white to green? Probably not that often, right? So that might be a good reason or a good scenario for you to add this as a library and put it inside of their own enterprise registry, right? A cool way to share your libraries across your teams and projects, like I was telling you, is using the NPM, right? So, but what if you don't want to have your code open to everyone? I mean, how many times have you used an NPM package? And I mean, if you had access to it, then everyone has access to it, right? But thanks to NPM Enterprise Registry, it only works for the people under your organization. Meaning, if you create this library and you publish it to your enterprise registry, only people under your organization are going to be able to use that component or the library, and nobody else outside your organization is going to have access to it. So your code will live in the NPM registry, and your teams will inject them into their apps the same way they inject any other NPM packages. So as you can see, this is example where I have the libraries that I built, right? And I have these two, and they can be used by this Angular application, and it can be used by another Angular application as well. So that's the main idea. Pretty cool, right? So, so as you can see, I'm pretty surprised what you can do with npm packages, because honestly, I didn't know before back in the days that npm packages could be private. So definitely take advantage of this functionality that npm is giving us. So let's talk about the Angular pros of using libraries, right? We need to think whenever we're building these modules with reusability in mind, right? Always, like I was telling you, whenever you're working with enterprise, reusability, what is going to be used by my team and what is going to be used by another applications inside of my organization, right? Because you don't want, let's say, like I'm giving the same example of the navbar. You don't want your navbar to look different than other team, because that breaks the branding and of your company. So you don't really want that, right? So everyone get it so far? Cool. So another thing that you need to consider is publish and share these libraries with other teams, right? Or other projects, and which is awesome. And so hopefully by now you understand what I'm trying to mean with the Anglers are gonna be with the Angular libraries that are gonna be used across multiple projects. But sadly, not everything is cool with Angular libraries. They have their own cons, right? So let's talk about what is not really cool about libraries. So link your library to your main project and rebuild it for every change. If you don't make the changes in your app with the versioning, right? So for example, let's pretend once again, I'm always gonna give the navbar example because it's just really easy to understand. So let's pretend that I have this white navbar and I have it on version 1.0, and the color of the navbar is white. I'm gonna change it to color green. Perfect, boom. I build my library, I push it to my npm registry, and now what, right? Now everyone in your organization that wants to have the updated or the latest version of your library have to update the version in their package.json. So you can see like already where I'm going, what the problem with this is. If it's a distributed via npm and built outside of your main project, you need to keep sync your projects with the latest version, like I was telling you. But to every problem, we have a solution. So keep in mind that you will need to keep syncing your project with the latest version of library, right? If you're using npm. But now you might be wondering, what is the solution to this problem? So that when it comes in place, Angular monorepos. The first thing that we need to do is know what an Angular monorepo is. So monorepos are a source control pattern where all the source code, where essentially all the code lives inside of the same repository. All the projects will always use the latest version of your code, meaning if you create a library, all the projects under, all the applications, under that project are gonna have the latest version of your library, and you don't have to update them manually. So pretty cool. You can already see the advantages of this, right? So let's take a look at the pros of Angular monorepos. Some of the advantages are same library version for every app. They're easy to maintain. When you update a shared library, you update it for all the apps, and no conflicts between versions. So you are always going to be up to date with the same team that is working with. I'm working with X team, and team Y is going to be having the same library, the same version that I'm using. So pretty cool, right? So as you can see, like I was telling you, easy to maintain and no conflicts between versions. And now, where should I build my libraries? That's like one of the most important questions. If all developers of a company are set to work on the same main project, no matter how large, using monorepo, right? So remember that we're talking about libraries, right? So like I was telling you, you have the two ways, the monorepo or putting them in the npm, right? So if all the developers are set to work on different projects, in different teams, locations, and more importantly, code bases, you might want to build these in their own repository. So let's think about this again. If you have really good communication with your team, right, and they're working under the same project, right? Let's pretend that you're working on building a school system, right? Some people are going to be working on the part for the students, some part for the part for the teachers, and other people, I don't know, the billing, right? So this could be a good scenario for us to put everything inside of a monorepo. If they're working on a different project, let's say I'm working for the school system and my coworker is working on a different project, not related, like a car dealership, like I was mentioning, then probably a monorepo is not the best way. Just use the npm registry for the shared components, but it's really important to have good communication, because even though that you don't work for the same project, they might be working with something that you might be using as well. So you don't want to repeat yourself, right? So be careful when using libraries. So every shared team, the library needs to have their own CI/CD pipeline. Each CI/CD pipeline should handle versioning of changes. Every time a new change happens in a shared repo, you need to go to all your projects using this library and update their npm packages versioning. And there are mismatches with different packages for the clients. That could be a problem. And in general, it's harder to cross-cut the version between teams, right? So now when we're working with monorepos, we're going to take a look to this awesome tool called NX by Norwal. Norwal is the team who invented this tool. And why should I use NX? If you're planning a large-scale Angular application where you have a lot of code base and large code bases, you might take a look to NX, right, for your Angular monorepo. Like I was telling you, if I'm building this project of a school system, right, NX is my preferred tool to go to when building a monorepo. And another cool thing is that they have built custom schematics for your project. So you can still use every Angular schematic that Angular CLI comes with, but the Angular team and the Norwal team, they have really communication between them, and they build custom schematics for your project. So getting started with NX. I'm not going to go in detail exactly on how to build your NX project. I'm just gonna highlight a few of the steps, but I do have a tutorial that walks you step by step, showing you how to build what I'm gonna show you here. So the first thing that you need to do with NX is install NX globally, right? So all you have to do is run this command, npm install -g @norwal schematics, right? Then we're going to create an NX workspace called, this is how you create it, npx create NX workspace, and then the latest version. And then in this scenario, my workspace is going to call this dot, which is actually the company that I work for, but that doesn't really matter right now. So creating an app, right? First, we need to add the superpower to NX to have the ability to create an Angular application via the CLI, right? So in order for us to give it a superpower, we have to do the following command: ng add @norwal Angular --defaults. That's simple, right? And there's a lot of documentation about this inside of their NX website. Then, like you have always done it before with a regular Angular application, you have to create it. And now, in order for you to create your Angular application, all you have to do is ng, and then the schematics, the custom schematics, and the name of my app is going to be called employees. So far, so good. Let me see if anyone has any questions right now. Oh, cool. That's awesome, Joshua. I didn't know that we help you guys with the AngularJS migration. That's really cool. So if anyone has any questions so far right now, let me know. Because, I mean, I know I'm covering a lot of topics, so I want to make sure that everyone is understanding what I'm saying. So I don't think anyone has any questions so far, so I'm going to keep moving. So once you have created your Angular application inside of your NX project, right? Your NX workspace structure is going to look like this. So every NX project is going to look like this, right? From the beginning, boom. Right now, it's just a simple project that you have created. And your Angular applications are going to go there. And your libraries are going to go here. So remember that a project, this is something that we have to understand. A project is, let me put it this way, a container of multiple applications. So inside of a project, you can have 100, 10,000, and as many Angular applications that you want. So whenever the Angular team talks that that Google has thousands and thousands of Angular projects, think about it this way. Okay, they have all these thousands of projects, but instead of every project, there are multiple Angular applications because they're using the monorepo pattern. So it's impressive how many thousands of Angular applications they have at Google. So now, and then all your libraries are going to live, like I was telling you, inside of this folder, which are going to be used across your applications inside of the project. So you don't have to worry about NPM right now. No, like at all, unless yes, of course, you can create a library and publish it to NPM, but in this case, for the Angular monorepo, there's no point. So once I have created my Angular application, right, I'm going to see two folders. And remember that my Angular application was called employees, and I'm going to see these two folders, right, which one has the end-to-end test, and the other one has my regular Angular employee structure, right, with my app.module and all that basic stuff that comes out of the box whenever you create a project. So hopefully right now you're like, wow, you're understanding what I'm saying. So let's get more in depth with NX, right, and see the advantages. So let's pretend that you want to reuse an interface because it's a really common scenario with enterprise projects. So in your command line, you're going to enter this line of code right here, and the name of my interface is going to be called employee, right? The cool thing about NX, right, is that you can share this interface across multiple applications, right, including backend. You can also include the backend inside of your Angular monorepo in the NX, especially Nest.js is very friendly with NX, so they can reuse this interface so that you don't have to create another one. So you're starting to already see the advantages of not repeating yourself, right? So once you have created this interface, it's gonna go to your library, right? And this is gonna be the path. And all you have to do once you create the interface, like everywhere else in your Angular apps, you have to actually enter your interface, right? How your interface is going to look like, which is part of how your data models is going to look like. And make sure that always think with reusability in mind one more time. So now let's create a UI library, right? We're running the following command. Once again, ng, which stands for ng-generate, and then the schematics from the normal team, and the UI, that is the name of my library, right? And once I have created, I have my employee interface right here, and then I have my UI library over here, right? And as you can see, both of them are inside of my libs folder. Why? Because they're going to be shared between the multiple projects and that I have. So now, in your component library that we just created, we're gonna run this following command, right? So what I want to do this time is create a employee list component that is gonna be reused between multiple applications inside of my monorepo. So the same way, ng component employee list, which is the name of my component, and then you specify which project library, which in this case is gonna be my UI, and don't forget to put the export, right? And then once you have created, as you can see, I have created this component. Nothing has changed from a regular Angular app that you build without the monorepo pattern or with a monorepo pattern. As you can see, every time that you create a component, you're going to have your HTML, you're going to have your styles file, you're going to have your testing file, and your TS file, right? So that is exactly the same. So don't think the folder structure of your component is going to change. So as soon as you start using NX, you're going to feel like really familiar to know what's going on. So, but you can not only create components, you can also create services, and you create the services the same way you create a service in whatever Angular application you're working on. The only difference is if you want to create a reusable service, right? Since they don't go inside of the UI module, your services, you're going to have to inject them inside of your index file. And this index file is inside of your normal workspace. It's already included for you. And all you have to do is just export this for every application have the access to this service. So now let's take a look to the UI module that is our library that we just built, right? As you can see, I just added the employee list component, right? Because that's gonna be part of my module. And once again, I'm pretty sure this is gonna look very familiar for you if you're working with feature modules, right? Because every time that you are creating features, the components are gonna live inside of the module, right? So now the UI module has everything that you need for your employees in this case. So now you might be wondering, how do I use my UI library inside of my monorepo, inside of my workspace? So, like I was telling you, every Angular application has an app module. That's by default. That's nothing new related with NX. That's just out of the box, right? So, since I want to use my UI module library that I built, now we have to import it. So if you go to your app.module inside of the application that you want to use your library, you're gonna inject it this way, right? UI module, and then from this dot, which is the name of my workspace, and the name of the library, which in this case is UI. So hopefully by this point, you see that it's nothing new, right? So if we keep going, you can see that that's all I have. And just the UI module that I'm injecting, I put it in the imports, and that's it. But what about now using my component that I create? Remember that we created an employee list, right? That could be used across all your applications instead of your monorepo. So the same way you use another component that you're building in your applications, right? So in this case is this dot dash employee list, right? And I'm injecting it inside of my app component.html. And this is my service that I created, right? That I'm importing it as well. And I'm using the async pipe just to create the subscription and the unsubscription for us, right? But as you can see, it's nothing new. It is the same way that you use Angular. You use Angular in NX the same way. So another cool thing about NX is that it's also a problem for us that I have seen in Angular enterprise applications is the shared assets. How many times it has happened to you that you're working with this enterprise application and you have to reuse the company logo, right? I'm just gonna give you an example. So that happens like really often. So in this case, you can also share assets with the monorepos. And the cool thing is that you have this inside of the libs folder, you create these shared assets, and you create another folder called images. And in this case, you put just logo TDM, and that's it. You put your logo for the company. And then you're going to go to the angular.json, and then you're going to specify where my assets are coming from, which in this case is this part right here. And that's it. Now you have the capability of reusing this logo from your company inside all of your Angular applications inside of the monorepo. Once again, have you guys noticed that we haven't used anything related with NPM, right? Because we're solving the issue of doing the versioning changes. So right now, you might be thinking that I'm done, but since enterprise is a huge topic, we have more, right? So now let's talk about a core concept that is really important in Angular enterprise application, which is lazy loading. Thanks to lazy loading, we can improve the performance of our applications. Imagine you have a huge enterprise app, and sometimes these enterprise applications, they have 100 components or more. you don't want to take a long time to load this application. It happened to me once that I was working with this project that the application was taking 2.5 minutes to load. So imagine, that's crazy. According to Google, some research that they did, your application should be loading between 1 to 3 seconds. So pretty fast. So 2.5 minutes was definitely not an option. So we have to refactor the application, and I did some tricks like lazy loading. So some cool things about it is the high performance in Bootstrap initial load is faster. Modules should be grouped according to their functionality, aka feature modules, right? So that's the reason why I mentioned feature modules before, because I was mentioning lazy loading right now. So you can see why doing feature modules is so important. So you can use things like lazy loading in your application. And this is going to help you with smaller code bundles in the initial download, because instead of downloading all your 100 components, you're only going to download the initial ones that you need. Then, so essentially, the lazy loading is really easy to implement. And this is how it's going to look like. This is just a tiny example. So inside of your routes, right, let's pretend that we have a customer list route. And you're going to do load children. Then you're going to import. This part right here is actually general JavaScript. You can do dynamic import with JavaScript. So this is just essentially what it is. And it's a promise. That's why I'm using the .then. And it's called customer.modules. So whenever I navigate to my customer list route, everything related with my customer is going to load. Instead of loading everything from the beginning, it's going to load just whenever I navigate to that route. So pretty cool. Another thing that I think is really important for enterprise projects is typing everything. One of the things that we need to consider when building an Angular application is the key to maintaining our application for the long term, right? Whenever you and your colleague go back and work in this application again, let's pretend that right now you're working on it, and then after 6 months, you were tasked to go on back to your application and start working on it again. So imagine going back to this project and not knowing what the data looks like, what is the data structure, and so on. So typing everything is going to help you scale your application, and is going to help new employees also to get familiar with your application faster, right? So because instead of having to make an HTTP call and see how the data looks like, they can easily just see the type of your variables and have a better idea of how your application is being built, right? So TypeScript offers you classes, enums, and interfaces, right? So like I was telling you, this is really important, so never use any. So just don't be this guy, you know. If you have an observable, for example, in this example, I have this observable called task, and I'm using any, don't do it. Even if you specify that it's an observable, right? In this case, it's an array observable, please just don't do that, right? Because this is gonna prevent you to make your application scalable. So you might be wondering, what should I do? So all you have to do is define that it's an observable and create an interface task, and you define it right here, which in this case is an array of tasks, right? So that's all you have to do. So great job, right? That's hopefully you mastered by now. Don't use any's. So cool. Another thing that I want to talk about whenever working with Angular applications is RxJS. And the reason is because a lot of people have the idea of, I don't need RxJS to use Angular. You're right. You're 100% right. You don't need it. But I recommend you to use RxJS, right? And I'm going to talk about the reasons why. But a lot of people, I have seen some projects that use npm packages like H's to pull data, or just using fetch, right? So that breaks the idea of making your application using like the core functionality and the core way of Angular working, which is with observables, right? Because out of the box, if you use the HTTP client module, whenever you use it, it's an observable, right? So, I mean, if we already have it, why do you have the need of installing a different package? So RxJS RxJS is your friend. Don't be afraid of it. Use the declarative approach, and think reactive. This is like super important, right? Because this is just gonna make your application better. It's gonna help you make your application faster, right? By leveraging the power of RxJS and RxJS observables and operators. And you can also effectively combine streams. It's going to help you to easy share observables and really react to user action, right? So, meaning whenever you're using RxJS the proper way, for example, you want to change the structure of how the data is coming back from your backend, right? Instead of, okay, now I get the data, I subscribe to my observable, now I'm gonna message the data and give it the structure that I want. You can do all that inside of your observable. So before it comes back to you, you already message it, give it the structure, and whenever I subscribe, boom, here is the data, how it looks like. So it's really important to learn RxJS because it's gonna make your application more reactive, which has a lot of benefits. So if you're really wondering, I'm not really gonna go in details of RxJS, but I think it's really important for me to mention it for your enterprise application. But if you really want to get really in-depth RxJS, there's a Pluralsight course by Deborah Kurata, which is an amazing person. She's super talented and she's a Google developer expert. I suggest you to take her course. Even though that I've been working with Angular for, I think for like 4 years right now, I took this course like a year ago and I was like, wow, like there are so many things that I need to keep learning all the time. Another thing that is really important for me to handle in enterprise applications is NGRX. NGRX is not required for you to use with any Angular application, nor Angular enterprise applications, but it's going to give you better performance. It has centralized immutable state. You're going to save time debugging, right? Because you can use the developer dev tools, and we know that time is money, and especially with enterprise projects, things get overwhelmed, and it's really easy to test. A lot of people don't like using state management tools, so they decide to just stick into RxJS and services. And that is completely fine as long as you have a data flow that you might need to handle the state with, like I previously mentioned. But essentially, you don't need NGRX, but I suggest just to use it, right? One day, John Papa, which is a super talented guy from the Angular community, he asked if people use all the time NGRX because sometimes he haven't used it just because he has a really good data flow in our application. But why you have to reinvent the wheel, right? You can always use awesome tools like NGRX. But if you don't like NGRX, because some people don't, we have other solutions to manage our state like NGXS and Akita, right? They essentially do the same. They help you manage the state. I create a survey on Angular state management on Twitter, and I ask people, hey, what is the state management tool that you mainly use? And the winning was NGRX. That's what most of the community use. So feel free to use whatever you want. I'm just letting you know the facts that most of the people use NGRX. So maybe that has its advantages, because if you have a problem and you go to Stack Overflow, the probabilities of someone helping you with your question, Stack Overflow, if you're using NGRX, is going to be higher than using another tool. Something that you need to consider as well is using Sass. Sass is very mature, it's stable, it's powerful, it's a great CSS extension language in the world, and Sass will help your team be more dry, right? And by dry, I mean do not repeat yourself, which is something that I've been telling you to keep reusability in mind. So if you can use Sass or less or whatever you feel comfortable with, use it, because it's gonna help your application in the long run. So if you're curious about Sass, I have a presentation right here that you can see. You can take a look to my presentation and just learn Sass on the fly. So essentially Sass, this is the way it looks like. It's just CSS, but as you can see, it has a different structure, and I think it's a more clean structure and it's less code, right? So this structure is already gonna help you write faster code. less errors, and it's gonna help you have the reusability in mind. Another thing that we need to consider with our Angular Enterprise application is using Bazel. Thanks to the Google team, now we have this awesome tool called Bazel, right, in our hands. Bazel allows us to build and test our backend and frontend with the same tool, right? So Bazel is not specifically for Angular. Bazel is using in Java and some other technologies, right? But now Bazel, with the latest version of Angular, is you just out of the box by default, so you don't have to do any modification in your project. It just is ready to be used. And the coolest thing about the latest release, like people have been talking about all the time, is Angular Ivy, right? And why I'm mentioning these tools, right? Because if you're in a old version of Angular, you might consider updating as soon as you can to the latest version, because you're gonna have these awesome tools like Bazel and Angular Ivy that are just gonna help you with your enterprise project, right? Overall, you're gonna save time. The bundle size is gonna be smaller. So why shouldn't you use these awesome tools? So Bo, you might be wondering, what is Angular Ivy? Ivy, in the nutshell, is the new rendering pipe and view engine, right? So the majority of the changes in Angular 9 have been around Angular Ivy. So definitely worth taking a look to this. Angular Ivy now, once again, comes out of the box. You could use it in Angular 8, right? But you have to change a variable in one of your files in order to be able to use Angular Ivy. But now you don't have to do that. It's ready to use. So let's start using it. So the way Ivy works, that makes it blazing fast and amazing, is that it's faster and simpler, not only in bundle sizes, but also the compilation process is simpler, right? Angular Ivy achieves this by doing locality and tree shaking, right? So, and that's another concept that you need to think about whenever you're working with Angular Enterprise applications. For example, I'm just gonna give you an example of the library Moment, which is a very, very popular library, right? The problem with that library is, well, first of all, it's a library to handle dates and days and things like that, to manipulate them and format them the way you want. The first problem with that is that every time that you use Moment, right, it uses the entire library every time that you import it. So it's a huge library. So you don't want to do that. You always want to focus on libraries that are tree shakeable, and Angular Ivy focus on that aspect, on locality and tree shakeable, right? Because you're only gonna be using what you need, right? So if you're not using something from this library or Angular, then Angular Ivy is like, why am I going to include this if you're not using it? So that's the core idea behind it. Also, I wanted to talk about component libraries, right? So in the enterprise world, is very common that you want your application to look essentially the same. And if you don't have any specific team to keep building custom components, right, for your application, I suggest you to take a look to these component libraries like Angular Material, PrimeNG, Semantics Angular, Bootstrap, and so on. My favorite one, in my personal opinion, is PrimeNG. PrimeNG is very easy to customize, give it the look and feels that correspond to the branding of your company. PrimeNG, you can test it out for free. Eventually, for enterprise companies, you're gonna have to pay, but it's worth it. Like, it's so good. It's really nice, and it has I think over 80 components. So from tables, dropdowns, maps. You think about it, PrimeNG already has it. So I really like it when I work with Angular enterprise applications. Finally, right, let's talk about extensions, right? How many times, and I'm giving you all these tips because there are tips that are needed to make, like I was telling you, your Angular application more maintainable and it's more stable, right? So some of the extensions that you can add to VS Code that are going to help you whenever you're developing are Angular snippets, Angular console, Angular schematics, Preacher, or rename tag, and so on. So feel free to take a screenshot of this and install them in your computer and your VS Code, and make sure that you share this with your team because it's going to help them, right, to code faster, and it's going to make sure that they keep the same pattern as everyone, because how many times it has happened to you that you submit your code to GitHub or Bitbucket or whatever, and you have a merge conflict with someone just because the formatting is different, right? So these are the tiny tips that are just going to help you in the long run whenever you're working with multiple people and multiple applications at the enterprise level. So something that is really important to mention too is the Angular security, right? In the enterprise world. So to keep current with the latest Angular library releases, that's super important, right? Because sometimes if they found a security issue, they fixed it, and now in the latest versions, you don't have that. So make sure that you are up to date on that aspect. Do not modify the copy of Angular. Just don't do it. Just keep working with Angular the way you're doing it, and don't try to tweak it just to make it work with your enterprise company. I mean, it should work the way it is, right? It's a great tool, so there's no need for you to modify it. And also, avoid Angular APIs marking the documentation as security risk, right? So you might be wondering, where do I find that? So if you go to this link right here, you can find all the APIs that are marked as security risk. And if you are wondering, well, okay, yes, that's awesome, but what about if I want to manage login, sign up, and so on in my application? So you can use Auth0. Auth0 is a security company, right, that handles all this for you and is very friendly with enterprise companies, right? There's multiple other ways that you can secure your application, right? But Auth0 is very popular, and they have tutorials on how to incorporate Auth0 security with your Angular application. So as soon as you Google, hey, I'm just gonna show you really quick. Auth0 Angular, right? Boom, it's right here, first link. And it just shows you how to do it. And this is a tutorial by Kim Maria, which is a Google developer expert as well. And it shows you step by step how to add security to your Angular application. So definitely take a look to this. Now, finally, whenever you're working with enterprise applications, it's really important for us to consider Angular PWAs, right? Which I'm not gonna talk about it because our awesome host is gonna talk about PWAs, but it's something that you need to consider when working with your Angular applications because the user experience is just gonna be better, right? So think about it. Other things to consider is Angular schematics, right? Whenever you're working on an enterprise project, it's very common for, let's say, to create your custom schematic and make the files look the way you want. So let's pretend that you want to create a component, and in your company, they really like to follow one pattern, right? Whenever they're working with components, instead of all the time someone having to remake this pattern, you can create a custom schematic. And whenever you create this component, it's going to look the way your company wants the component to look like, the component structure or even the code inside of it. So another thing is using ng4 track-by. So track-by, essentially what it does is instead of rendering everything in your ng4, right, it's just going to re-render whatever it has changed, which already you can see the benefits of it. It's just better optimization for your application. So research ng4 track-by and try to use subscribe in the view using the async pipe, which is just not only going to subscribe, but it's also going to unsubscribe for you. So you're already saving one step of doing the ng on destroy and manually unsubscribing from the observable. And also this makes your application more reactive. So it goes back to other topics that I was talking about, which is RxJS. And use on push change detection. So hopefully you like this talk. This is pretty much the end. But if you really want to learn more about Angular on Enterprise, I have these 3 articles that I have written: Angular architecture and the Angular libraries with NX for enterprise apps. This is a step-by-step showing you how to build the project that I was pretty much showing you in the presentation. In the presentation, I didn't put every single step, but in the tutorial, here is every single step. Right, and another tips, under tips that I was talking about. You can find them here, more in detail with a full description. So hopefully you liked it. And if you have any questions, let me know. Let me see, actually, people who have.
Yep. Hey, Pato. So thanks for sharing your insights on Angular for Enterprise. I have like a couple of questions from audience. Let me put it on screen so that you can
Okay, sounds good.
read it over and answer you. So you are able to see the question?
Yes, I'm reading it right now.
Okay.
What about same types being used in only 2 feature modules? Should we keep them in share or export from one feature module to use in another? We keep them in a share or export from one feature to another. That's a really good question. I think at least I would put them in like a shared folder, right? Because maybe hold on, let me reread that again. Only 2 feature modules. Yeah, because if you do that, if you're using it, let's say you have 2 feature modules, right? And these feature modules, if you put these 2 pipes in another module and you try to inject this module in these 2 feature modules, this module might contain multiple things that are not needed for these 2 modules right here, right? So if you're only going to put your pipes or things that are 100% being used by these 2 other modules, then sure, you can put it in a module. But if you're not sure, then just might as well just put in a share folder and inject them. What is next? What's the next question?
Yep. So this is a question from Challappan. How to share styles between multiple libraries?
Between multiple libraries. That's a really good question. Honestly, I cannot like think about it like right now. Let me get back to you if you want. Because I mean, obviously, like I don't know, like everything. But if you want, yes. So can you see my screen? Yes. Can you remove the question for a second?
Yeah, sure. Just a moment. Yep, that's
so. Get back to me on Twitter this week, and I will have the answer for you. And I'll tell you how to do it. But there's definitely a way to inject it. I just cannot think one from the top of my head, but like I did it before. And one way is actually doing CDNs. So yeah, that's one way, and CDNs are great. So, but okay. I'm still gonna do more research for you.
Okay. So next question is here from Aditya again.
If I export a component from feature module 1 and import it in feature module 2, those feature module 2 also loads when if I export a component from feature module 1, right, and import it into feature module 2, though the feature module 2 also loads when it's just gonna load whatever was in your route. So wherever the route was, wherever the component is using it, that's the one that's gonna load. It's not gonna load anything else.
Okay. So here is the third question from Aditya.
Okay, what is your preference for state management while working with Angular? Oh my God, I love this question. This is a really good question. Aditya is my boy right now. Okay, let me put it this way. If you have a small application, right, try to use observable based data sharing, right, which is in your service using behavior subjects and things like that, right? I'm pretty sure that's what you're referring. If your application is big, I suggest you to use NGRX, but also keep in mind that it's going to be a learning curve. So I have working projects, and I think that was similar to what John Papa was getting into, because he worked on projects that they never used NGRX. But we were getting into the issue that, yes, NGRX is awesome, 100% I suggest you to use it, but the problem is that your team is going to have to learn a new tool, and if time is an issue, NGRX might not be the way to go, because your team is gonna take a second to grasp the idea of how Redux and NGRX and all the Redux pattern works.
Okay, moving on to the next question from
What
Kriti.
would it take to move from NGRX to NGX on an existing project?
Even I had this question on my mind.
I'm sorry?
Even I had this question on my mind.
Oh, okay. What will it take? I mean, I'm pretty sure the logic is essentially going to be the same, right? First of all, the first thing that you're going to have to do is import, if you're using already NGRX, NGXS, right? I have heard really good things about NGXS. I'm surprised no more people use it. And then based on that, you're just going to have to follow the documentation and just change I'm just going to give you an example. Let's pretend in NGRX, they're using the word dispatch, and in NGXS, they're using dispatch action. Then you're just going to have to do that specific change. But I don't think it's going to be like major changes, just pretty much doing the convention of how one library does one thing and the other the other. But the data flow should be the same.
Okay, so moving on to the fourth question from Aditya.
Okay. I told you, this is my boy right here.
Yeah, he
What
flooded
is
with questions.
the level of nesting one should go while working with? That's a really good question, and it really depends. I think that is definitely a correct level of nesting. I would say maybe 2-3 levels max. But it really depends. Also, depending what this like pattern you're using, right? If you're using BEM, like BEM, right? Your levels are gonna be probably smaller, but it really depends. So, and it really depends on your project, but really.
Okay.
And also, coming back to that, to the same question, I get that question really often, on a similar question on how deep should I go whenever sending data to my DOM components. That's a really common question. So I honestly don't like to go down more than 2 levels. So I have my smart component right here, send the data to the dummy, and then the dummy sends it to another one. That's it. I don't like to do more than that.
Okay. And this is a question from me.
What security measure you suggest to keep apps safer and secure? Well, first of all, using a tool like
JWT.
I'm sorry?
We use JWT for authentication in our application.
There are multiple applications. I'm not just saying that you should use Auth0. There's people who use Okta, right? There's people who use Firebase. There's people who use AWS. Just make sure that it's a reliable application that is being used for security, that it has a good name, right? Because you don't want to just get the first company that gives you the best price and then your data is just going to be released. So other than that, follow the patterns is make sure that you secure your routes, right? And you have domain rules. Those are the 2 concepts that you should definitely have. And if you pay attention to my presentation, let me go back really quick. So all the way to the top. All the way to the top. That's part of the 9 blocks that I was showing at the beginning. We're almost there. Patient. Okay. So domain rules and domain security. So those are some of the things that you need to consider. So, for example, also you want to give access to the people that should have access. So that kind of things.
Okay. So, and one last question from Joshua.
Okay, Joshua. Question for Pato. Why use input change detection? Any things that need to be changed about the way you design your app? Yes. Okay. Really, really good question. And I wish I had more time to talk about this, but on pushing change detection, it works mainly with inputs. That's the way it works, right? So whenever your input changes, that's whenever your application is gonna render, right? Well, that component or that view, and this is a very common pattern whenever you're working with NGRX. So if you're working with NGRX, it's really good to do the on push change detection. It's going to help you a lot. And if you take a look to a course from Deborah Kurata, the same woman who has the tutorial RxJS on Pluralsight, she has one for NGRX. She goes into details what you should be using on push change detection with NGRX and how to use it. So I'm just going to look that up for you really quick. So I go here, GRX, Pluralsight, and I'm pretty sure it should be this one. It's not this one, but Duncan Hunter is one of the guys who helps Deborah Kurata with the NGRX course. So just go to Pluralsight and look it up. I don't know the link on top of my head, but it will help you a lot. It will, oh my God, like after taking this course and the RxJS one, you will be like, what had I been doing with my life? I don't know if I answered your question, Joshua. Do we have more?
Yeah, one last question from Kriti.
Other than authentication, what tools do you use for application security sync versus NPM audit? Let me think. So for application for security, NPM audit and sync, I don't know exactly what you mean with sync in what specific context. So if you can like tell me a little bit more about that, or reach out to me on Twitter and we can definitely have a talk. And if I don't know the answer to your question, whenever you reach out to me on Twitter, I'm pretty sure I know someone that does. Because I, like I was telling you, I'm an Auth0 ambassador, so I'm really involved with security pips. So anyone has any more questions? Joshua, you seem happy. Hopefully I answered your question.
Yeah, and thanks much, Pato, for sharing your insights.
Cool. Just a quick note. I see that someone mentioned 3-level max on CSS. Yeah, like I was saying, I usually try to do 2, 3, but I mean, it really depends what pattern are you using, right? But yeah, definitely 3. I think it's a pretty solid nesting stuff to do. So awesome. Thank you so much for your time. And now you guys are gonna hear a awesome talk on Angular PWA, which is like hot topic now.
Yeah.
PWA is the future. So thank you so much, guys.
Yep. Thank you so much, Pato. And please share your slides link on Twitter, or you just share it with me. I will post it to the Meetup group.
Right. Maybe have a second before I forget. And let me see. Private chat. There you go. That's the slides. And please leave me feedback. Don't be afraid. The feedback is something that helps me keep growing and doing better the presentation. So feel free to do so. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So we got some appreciations for you from audience. Kriti has posted great presentation.
Awesome.
And Basil and Joshua and Aditya.
And don't forget to take a look to the tutorial that I showed you guys. This is gonna talk to you more in depth about this whole Angular enterprise application step by step. Bye-bye. Take it easy.
Yeah. Thanks, Pato. Have a great evening. Hey, everyone. Okay, so let's move on to the next topic or the next part in our session. So which is quiz. We'll quickly go through a small quiz on Angular basics just to test our understanding, like where we are on Angular. So for that, you need to access kahoot.in. And let me share you the link for that. Just a moment. Okay, hope you are able to see my window here. So let's play this quiz now. Just a moment. I'm facing some issues here. Okay. Hope you are able to see my screen now. Okay. So all you need to do is access kahoot.it, or if you have Kahoot app, you can access it from right from your mobile, or you can just go to kahoot.it and enter this pin. Okay, we have two players, Srashti and Josh. Okay, don't worry, guys. This is not going to be a serious quiz or something. This is just going to test our basic understanding on Angular. Okay, we have 4. Okay, 5 players now. Okay, keep joining. Okay. So it's 11:17 here. We'll begin at 11:18. Okay. So 20 seconds more. So let me see how many audience we have. 36. Okay. So we have 9 players. Okay, how about others? Okay, we got 11. Okay, once the quiz is started, you cannot join again. So please join right now. You can give your nickname, your name, a nickname, or even you can give like some random letters if you don't want to reveal your name, just in case. Okay, I give 1 more minute to join others. Okay, all set. Anybody still joining? Okay. Okay, let's start the quiz. So it's going to contain 10 questions, like true or false, or a multiple selection or single selection. So the first question is, Angular is it a library, framework, or module, or it's a design pattern? Okay, it's a framework. That's a good answer. Moving on to next question. Okay, Srashti is on lead. Okay, so coming to question number 2, pick a command to create Angular project. This is a simple command we use to create a project. So we have 4 options here: ng, g stands for generate, ng create, ng new, ng add. So let's see what's the answer. Okay, it's ng new. That's awesome. Moving on to next question. What is the default compiler used in Angular 9? I think you should have heard this word wherever you access Angular tutorials on internet. And I would say it's a buzzword in the past 1 year. Okay, it's Ivy. Yep, Ivy is the default compiler in Angular 9. And moving on to next question. Okay, Srashti is on top still. That's good. Moving on to next question. Pick one that is efficient in handling two-way binding. This is kind of a confusing question. Simple thing is, you just need to remember banana in a box. And Angular follows camel case. These are the two clues I can give. Okay, we got 13, 14 answers, 15 answers, 16, 17 answers. Wow, that's great. Okay, NG model, M should be in capital letter, and it needs to be put it in banana in a box format, right? Moving on to next question. Okay, so Kato climbed up. Srashti is on top still. Moving on to next question. Pick one that can paint text hello world on UI. You can pick any one. There could be multiple answers here, but choose one that will print hello world on UI. Okay, we got 6, 7, 8, 9 answers, 10 answers. Okay, this is kind of a weird question, I would say. Okay, so now only one answer correct. Okay, so there are three ways we can do it. We can plainly print hello world, or we can use string interpolation to print the word hello world, or we can use attribute here to print the title, the value of the title. Moving on to next question. Akhil Raj climbed 9 places. That's good. So sixth question. Interaction between components can be achieved using at input, at output binding. So this is a true or false question. Okay, it's true. So for parent-child relationship, like if you want to pass some data from parent to child, or if you want to emit an event from child to parent, we usually go with the at input or at output binding. And moving on to next question. Which way of form handling is robust, scalable, and reusable in Angular? Template-driven and reactive forms. Okay, it's reactive forms. So for enterprise level form handling, like if you have like multiple input elements or multiple form elements within your form, it's better to go with reactive form, right? And we can generate reactive form programmatically in Angular. So that is one advantage of the reactive way of handling forms in Angular, right? So moving on to next question. Which class helps in identifying if the controls value got changed? So Angular provides default classes for handling form elements values, like whether the value got changed or whether the value is not a valid value, right? So what is that class name we have in Angular? Okay, it's ngdirty. So ngdirty will look for the change in value of the control. When the value got changed, it automatically trigger ngdirty class. So if you have some CSS attribute set for ngdirty class, that will automatically start showing up on the screen, right? So Srashti is on the lead still. Good work, Srashti. And Ashish is in second position, Kato third position, Monty and BCN in fourth and fifth position. Moving on to next question. To invoke whether a service, what is the best practice you will follow? This is just a scenario-based question. So I have a third-party weather app service, and I just want to invoke the service and get the current weather based on the latitude and longitude of my location. So we can do it in, we can implement it in many ways. Like we can use jQuery, or we can create a TypeScript class and invoke some node modules, third-party node modules. Or third, we can take the help of REST endpoint. I mean, we can take the help of service itself, Angular service. Yes. So Angular service is the best practice to be followed when it comes to invoking an HTTP API. And one last question. So Shrashti, so you answered 6 correct answers so far in a row. It's cool. Moving on to the last question. Angular releases major version every 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, 2 weeks. Okay, it's every 6 months. So even though they mention it like every 6 months, it may change sometimes based on the other schedules. Like Angular 9, it took more than 6 months because of the Christmas holidays and all. But they promised to do it like every 6 months. So that's the schedule they have, right? So we are at the end of the quiz. So here is the podium. So Ashish is in third place, Kato in second place, and Srashti is in first place. Okay, and DCN in fourth, and Hello World in fifth. Okay, I just took the screenshot so that I will post it on Twitter to the session. Okay, thank you so much for taking up the quiz. Let's move on to the next topic in our session, which is Angular PWA development. So before I dive into the slides, I just want to ask a quick question. Have you heard about the word PWA before? You can answer it in live comments there. Have you used PWA or have you heard about PWA before? Okay, so PWA stands for Progressive Web Apps. Okay. I think I have some issues with my live comments here. Okay, I got the comments now. Okay. Yep. Looks like most of you guys used PWA or heard about PWA. Yes, Rashti. Okay, you heard about it, but you haven't used it much. Okay. Okay, that's cool. So we are going to create a simple Angular app today using a PWA, and we will deploy it to a Firebase. Okay. So I won't take more than 30 minutes, I promise, to go through the slides as well as to create the app and deploy it to Firebase. So let's dive into the slides from here. So let me open the slides first. So let me share the screen. Hope you are able to see my screen now. So I titled it as a PWA is the future because PWA should be the future. So I won't say it is a future. It is a future, but it's going to be the future for sure. And let's see why it is going to be. And also we'll see some technical stuff related to PWA development. And as well as we will create a simple app and deploy it to Firebase. Okay, let's begin from here. So I don't need much introduction about me. As you already know, I'm the host of Angular RTP Meetup group. Also, I host Angular sessions in Angular online Meetup. So that's for like folks from India and other parts of the world. And if you haven't RSVP'd yet for our next week session, please go ahead and do it. I will share you the link at the end of the session. Okay, and I'm also a consultant working for a firm here in the US. And I have close to like 11 years of software engineering experience, and I'm working on Angular for past 3 years. And Java is my backend, and Spring is the framework which I'm predominantly using in my backend area. So agenda for a PWA session is we'll go through the PWA, what it is, and we'll go through the features, and we'll also go through the case studies where PWA is used. And we'll also discuss how it works, like what are the technical jargons involved there, and a quick demo. And before the demo, we'll create an app. And after that, we'll see a demo. And finally, I will take questions from you. Okay, as the acronym here for PWA, it's Progressive Web App. And this is the official logo for PWA. Right? So PWA doesn't have any official logo yet, but this is kind of the unofficial logo which is being used on internet, right? And what is PWA? We know it stands for Progressive Web Apps, but what actually it does, what it is. So this is the definition I took from Mozilla Web Docs. PWA is going to use modern web APIs. So basically, it is going to run only on modern web browsers with traditional progressive enhancement strategy. Like you will start from 0 and you will end it like hero. So that's what the progressive enhancement here is. So you will start with nothing first. You will keep adding few features to your progressive web app, and you will deploy it to your server at the end of the day or end of the sprint or even end of the year. It's up to you and how long you are going to take the development time, right? And this app will work everywhere. So wherever the browser is, it will work, seamlessly. Like if your browser is installed on tab or mobile device or on desktop or on a PC, wherever it is, it's going to work seamlessly, and it's going to give the same user experience that a native apps will give you, right? So native apps in the sense, like for example, a Facebook app that we install in our mobile, it's a native app. So that is native to the Android or iOS platform, right? Even the progressive web apps that we are going to develop today, it's going to look like a native web app, native app. Why it's going to look like native app is it's going to have the app icon, and it's not going to have the address bar, and it's going to occupy the entire length and width of your devices, mobile devices or desktop or wherever it is. It's going to give you a look and feel like you are accessing a native app, but actually it is running on a browser, right? And one big advantage of PWA is it can work offline as well. That's what we are going to see in a couple slides next. So that's the introduction we have for PWA, and that was taken from Mozilla Web Docs. And what are the features this PWA has got? First one is progressive. As I already told you, it starts from 0. You start with a simple screen with a couple of controls over there, and later you just keep adding new features to it and release it as and when you want it, right? So that's a progressive enhancement you can make to your web apps. And not only that, the PWA team on the internet, so they are doing a lot of research on how this progressive web app can be enhanced further, like how we can integrate Bluetooth or Wi-Fi or even camera features. Everything can be accessed from a PWA app itself. So like a lot of research is going on. So we will have like A to Z app, like PWA app, that will work as similar to native app in couple years, right? And the next feature we got is discoverable. So one big advantage of PWA is discoverable. Like your PWA app, whatever content you put within the PWA app is discoverable by search engines. Like Bing or Google search engine can just dive into your progressive web app, and it can go through each and every line of your web app, and it can index it. Say, for example, you are having a marketplace where you are selling your goods, right? You are selling, say, suppose you are selling cameras, and you have your PWA app having the list of cameras listed over there. And what this Google search engine will do is it will go and index each and every link present within your PWA app, and it will index it. So when users search for a specific camera, and it's going to show your link, or it's going to redirect them to the part of the web page that you have within your PWA. So this part is one of the key features we have in PWA. This cannot be achieved in native apps. Like in your Facebook app or in your even WhatsApp app, you cannot, I mean, Google search cannot go and index anything within the app, like Facebook or Instagram or whatever apps we have. But in the progressive web apps, it can go and index a part of the web page, or even it can index the entire web page. So that is one advantage of discoverable. So your app is discovered by millions, right? Because they are going to search something on a search engine, and it's going to redirect to your app. So you don't have to do a lot of advertisements there. You don't have to advertise your apps here and there in Play Store or Google App Store. So that is one thing. And the third feature we have here is native app-like. So this PWA is going to look like a native app. I mean, it's going to look like a native app because it's not going to have the address bar first, and it's going to have an app icon. So you will have an app icon on your home screen. When you just tap on that, it's going to open the app on your browser. But you won't feel that it's actually running on the browser, right? So it's going to give you a native app-like. So user will, for sure, he will like it because it's going to share the same features of other native apps present within the smartphone, right? And responsive. So you create one app and run it across multiple devices. So you just need to tweak your CSS in order to make sure this app can run across all the devices and give the same look and feel. And no network is needed here. Yeah, so PWA doesn't need internet first of all. So until or unless you need to bring something from the server, or you need to sync something back to the server, you need internet. Other than that, you don't need internet. You can just run your PWA app offline as well. So one example I can give here for offline support. So you all know about this Carbon app, right? So where we add our code and create a nice image out of it and post it in Twitter, right? So this Carbon app itself a PWA app. So how I'm saying it as a PWA app is, you can see this plus icon here, right? It provides an option to install this app as an offline app, so that it can even work when there is no Wi-Fi connectivity available in my home, right? And not only that, this will not run within your actual browser. It will run like a native app. So user will get a feel like, okay, this is looking like a native app, cool. So they will start using this app as and often instead of going to the actual website, right? And this also adds icon to your home screen. So when you double click on this or tap on this, it's going to open the app here, and you won't see this address bar here. So this is one quick example for PWA. And even if I remove the internet connection now, it should work. But I'm not going to do now because we are doing a live stream here, right? So coming back to the slide. Yeah, so deploy as you go. So whenever you develop your app, you don't need to wait for audit or review from Google or Apple in order to push your app to the App Store. So it's your app, and you can deploy it anywhere, like AWS, Google Cloud, Azure, or even in your on-prem servers, and deploy as and when you need it, right? So you can decide about like 5 deployments per week or 10 deployments per month. It's up to you. So you can keep pushing the features to your app, and users will get delighted of your app, right? So these are the features we have for PWA. Coming to PWA stats. So a couple of stats I took from internet. So these are the companies who converted their web applications into progressive web apps, and that paid them a lot. So if you take a look at Starbucks gained 2 times of daily active users after this PWA was released, right? So user doesn't have to go to Starbucks. They don't have to search for it, right? So instead, they can just install this app, the Starbucks app, and it's going to add an icon on the home screen, and from there they can access it. And even Uber also gained out of this PWA. Even Flipkart, one of the India's giant e-marketplace, so even they increased their sales by 50%. Even Google have their progressive web apps for their most of the development related pages, right? Even Pinterest. So these companies gained a lot from PWA implementation. If you want to know more about PWA stats, you can just go to this link, pwastats.com, where you can see the other companies as well who gained out of PWA implementation, right? Okay, that's it. Okay, so we discussed about its features, and we also discussed about the companies that gained out of PWA, right? So how to implement PWA, or how to convert your existing web application into PWA, right? You may have that question on your mind now. So we need to go through a couple of requirements before migrating your app into PWA app, and you need to see whether that's possible in your company or that's possible in your application first of all, right? So let's quickly go through the requirements for creating PWA. The first requirement is you need to serve your app, the web app, on HTTPS. So it needs to be secure because the content is going to be cached. It's going to be stored on the user's device. So it needs to be genuine content, and it should not have any controversial stuffs. So that's why we need to serve it on HTTPS, right? So that it cannot be hacked easily by the intruders. So we need to have our app running on a server served on HTTPS, right? That's the first requirement we have. And the second requirement is service worker. So you need to implement service worker in your application to implement PWA. So what is service worker? It's a JavaScript API, I would say, or it's a web API, which is available in all modern browsers like Chrome, Edge, and Mozilla, and even Safari. So all these modern browsers have this service worker implementation on their browsers. You just need to invoke service worker for creating the PWA mechanism in your app. So what basically the service worker is going to do is it's going to hit your server and cache the content of the web page, basically. So this caching can be done either in the first access itself, as soon as you access the page, or it can be done after a couple of seconds, or it can be done based on the user's actions, right? So this service worker implementation is one of the key factor in deciding how to convert your app into PWA app. The third one is you need to create a web manifest for your web application. So what is web manifest? As the name says, it's a metadata for your web application that's going to let know your browser, okay, this is the app icon, and this is the app icon for Android device. This is the app icon for Apple device. This is the app icon for desktop devices. So you will have a bunch of app icons put in your app, in your web app, and you will provide those links in the manifest file. And your browser will read this manifest file and it will process it. Whenever a browser reads this manifest file, it will assume that, okay, this app is going to work as a PWA app, and it will start showing this plus icon, like the one that was shown for carbon.now.sh, right? We installed it already. That's why it is not showing the plus icon here. but it will show plus icon as soon as browser knows that this web app is having web manifest file. Okay, so it's your duty to create web manifest file for your web application. And the fourth one is it needs to be responsive. So your app needs to be responsive so that it can work across all devices and it can provide the same output, right? So that is one important aspect of PWA. So when user is accessing your web app from mobile or desktop or tablet, they need to have the same look and feel. So that's why we need to design our app responsive. And the fifth important one is you should not implement redirects. Say suppose you have your app mounted on a domain called abc.com, and tomorrow you are changing your domain to something like xyz.com, right? It's not going to work. You need to install the app once again, because the redirect is not going to work for PWA, okay? Because it needs to be secure. So when redirect occurs, browser assumes that, okay, some wrong content is going to be fetched from the server. So it just blocks the service worker execution itself, and it won't allow service worker to bring some data from the server, right? So these are the requirements we have. And here is the browser compatibility. You can just quickly go through it. And I don't want to talk much about it. It's kind of a resource which you will find it on internet as well, right? Okay, so to implement PWA, this is a step-by-step procedure we need to follow. First, you need to create web manifest, and you need to create icons for each devices. So icon in the sense, the carbon icon which I showed you, right? Which get added on the home screen, right? You need to create different sizes of icon for your devices. And the third one is you need to create a service worker implementation. And the fourth one is the service worker will automatically install the application in your browser, and it will start downloading all the pages. And once it start downloading the pages, the service worker will get activated. So it will be active. It will be active in the browser. It will keep looking for the user's action. If you want to sync some data back to the server, it just does that. If you want to bring some data from the server based on user's action, it's going to do that. So service worker will be in active stage in order to look for the user's activity. And if user is not going to interact with the app, the service worker will go on idle stage. And when user closes the browser, the active service worker instance will be terminated. Okay, so this is the life cycle we have for service worker. So the first 3 points deal with the step-by-step implementation, and the last 4 points deal with how the service worker is going to work here, right? But I'm not going to write all these. I'm not going to follow all these steps here one by one, because this is kind of a boilerplate code implementation. So I'm going to give it to Angular to take care of this, and I'm going to just convert my app into PWA app by using Angular PWA dependency. Okay, so let me quickly go through the life cycle once again. So when the app is installed, like how we did it for carbon.now.sh, it will install the service worker, and service worker will download all the offline pages, and it will be in active stage. When user is not interacting with the page, it will go on idle stage. When user want to sync something, like if he wants to sync his score, if it's a gaming web app, a gaming PWA app, if user wants to sync something back to the server, it will become fetch state or message state. Other than that, it will go on to the terminate state. If service worker itself not created, say suppose in older browsers like IE7 or IE8, service worker implementation is not there, it will error out. But user won't see that it got errored out, but they won't see that plus icon in the address bar, right? I'm going to take the help of Angular here to convert my app into PWA app. So I already created a simple app, and I already checked in my code into my repository in GitLab. I'm just going to clone that and convert that app into a PWA app. Okay, so this is my playground folder. I'm just going to clone that project, what I have. Okay, sorry. Git bash here. And okay, you are able to see my screen? I think I need to share my entire screen. Sorry about that. Okay. So all I did was I just went to my repository in GitLab. And this is where I have my code called, app called that joke app. And this joke app is going to bring a joke from remote API, and it's going to display it on the UI, right? So I'm just going to clone this app. Clone this repository in my local folder. So this is my playground folder. I just did a git bash here, and I'm going to clone the app. Okay, so the app got downloaded, and let me open it in VS Code. Okay, I'm not going to go through the implementation as we are running out of the time. So it's simple. I have like two components basically, like home component and about component. And in home component, I will be displaying the jokes, and about component is just going to display like what this about is all about. Sorry, what this app is all about, right? Okay, so now it's time to install the dependencies. I just need to move on to the folder first before installing the dependencies, right? So cd .joke npm I. So this will install the dependencies for me. And once after that, I will dry run the app on my browser and see whether I am able to see that install icon, all those stuffs. And I will also go through the audit in order to see if it is 100% progressive web app or not. Okay. And once after that, we'll install the dependencies and we will run the app once again. And finally, we will deploy it to the server, a Firebase server, right? Okay, so all dependencies got installed, and I'm going to start the app by running this command ngserve-o. This will serve my app on the default browser running on my machine. Okay, so that's why I added the option -o, and it's going to take a couple seconds. So just bear with me. Okay, let me quickly go through the comments if you have any. Okay, I have a couple of comments here. And please share, please post your questions here, just in case if you have anything. I will answer your questions at the end of the session. Okay, it's compiling all the modules present in the Angular app. And I used Angular material basically here, like snack bar, card layout, and even Angular navbar as well. And this is a simple app. I hope you are able to see it now. Okay. And this app is having two components, basically home and about. And here I have a couple of controls in the bottom. And clicking on this button will fetch a new joke from the API. And this is the dat joke API I'm using here. And I'm nowhere related to these jokes. Okay, if it is not good or if it is very good, I'm not responsible for this. Okay. Okay, and I also added two features here. One is I can share this dat joke right from here on Twitter. Let me see if I have some good joke here. Okay. Still me. Okay, so this is kind of a joke we can. Okay, so this, on clicking on this, it will just share my joke on Twitter. And basically, I'm hitting the Twitter URL on clicking on this button. And clicking on this will copy this joke to my clipboard. Okay, and I'm here using a nice snack bar to show whether the joke got copied or not. And you can see the joke got copied in copy to clipboard, right? Awesome. So this is the app I have now, and this is not progressive web app because I don't see this install button. And I will see this install button only when this app is served on HTTPS. That is again another point you need to note down. And coming to audit, I just want to quickly audit this app to see if this is a progressive web app. We are going to take the help of Lighthouse. Go to your Google console and go to audits and click on generate report and make sure progressive web app is checked. And on clicking on generate report, it's going to generate a report for you, and it's going to show whether this app is a progressive web app or not. Okay, this app is not progressive web app. It's not. It has not met 0 out of 3. Like for fast and reliable, it needs to there needs to be like a point of 3. It hasn't met even 1 point there. And for installable, it's again not installable. It needs to use HTTPS. And for PWA optimized, it has not done anything related to PWA, right? Because this app is not having anything related to PWA. That's why you are saying this app is not having any PWA functionality at all, right? Now I'm going to take the help of Angular PWA to convert this application, this barebone application into a PWA application, right? So all I'm going to do is add the dependency called Angular PWA. So go back to your VS Code, ng add @angular/PWA. This is going to add the PWA dependencies, and also it's going to add a couple of files, and it will also make some configurations to that. The first file that will get added here is the service worker.js that deals with the installing the service worker, activating it, terminating it, or putting it on ideal stage, right? All these code is going to be put on to the service worker.json, and the name we have here is ngsw-config.json, right? So this is a JSON file related to your service worker implementation, okay? And here, this is the first file got added after adding this ng add Angular PWA. And what it basically does is, it is just instructing your service worker web API to download index.html and favicon.io, ICO, and all CSS, all JavaScript files, and cache it in the browser, right? So that's what it does. And this is the instruction got created by Angular PWA itself. This is the first file got created. And the second file we have here is manifest.webmanifest. And this is the file which browser will look for to just decide whether this app is a progressive web app or a normal web app, right? And basically, it will have information about the icons, app icons. And here it has put different icons with the different sizes for each device types. And Angular itself created icons for me with different sizes, okay? And this is the default sizes I have, like from 72 cross 72 to 512 cross 512, okay? And if you are developing your app, and it's your responsibility to create different icons for different devices, and you need to put them under assets icons folder, and you just update those names here in the manifest file, right? That's it. This is the second thing got added. And the third one is it just updated index.html. So if you go to index.html, it just added link to manifest.webmanifest. So this is just giving hint to your browser that, okay, I am the PWA app. Please cache it in, please cache me in your browser folder. This is the instruction it is giving to browser. So browser will go through the manifest file, and it will read the instruction given here. It will download all the app icons, and it will also call the service worker implementation as well. So in service worker implementation, it will cache all the necessary files, right? So this is the one thing we need to do. And the app is already serving here. Okay, we will serve it once again. because we added a couple of modules now, right? So it needs to be compiled once again. So I'm going to do ngserve-o. So this is going to compile my modules. And it's going to run on same localhost :4200. But you will see some difference here. Let me show you what is that. Okay, it compiled successfully, and it's serving on port number 4200. And we are having the same output, right? That's fine. But if you right-click and click on Inspect, and if you go to Network, and if you reload this page, you will see it started downloading this thing, manifest.webmanifest. So this is the file which have information about your app links, all those. And also it downloaded our service worker implementation. I think it downloaded it already. What I'll do force refresh so that it will download everything again. Okay, I think it downloaded the service worker JSON again already, so that's why I'm not seeing that here. So what I do, let me access it from private browser, and nothing is cached there. Okay, again, I'm not seeing it here. Maybe it should have downloaded from the first refresh itself. Okay, I will show it how it will work after deploying this app on Firebase. Okay, so we'll go ahead and analyze this app, whether it's really a progressive web app. So we'll take the help of Lighthouse again. So click on Generate Report, go to console and look for audits. Click on Generate Report. And this should give you information about whether this app is progressive web app. No, still it is not a progressive web app because it is saying like couple of things are not met. Like the current page does not respond with a 200 when offline. Okay, because we haven't implemented the offline support yet, right? So it will be done only when the service worker is installed, and service worker didn't get installed here because it's a local host. Okay, that's the reason. But these errors will be resolved as soon as we deploy this app on a server that is serving app on HTTPS. Okay, so we completed the migration of converting a simple app from standard web app to progressive web app. All we did was just added this ng add angular PWA. It added the service worker configuration and manifest, and it created a couple of icons for me, and also it added the links to my icons, manifest, and other stuffs to the index.html. It by itself did everything for me. So I didn't do any code, any single piece of code here, other than running the ng add angular/PWA. Right? All set. I'm going to take the help of Firebase here, but before that, I need to build this app, and I want to build this app in production mode. So I just ran ng build --prod. So it's going to build my app, and the entire content, the output content is going to be available at dist folder, right? And I want to run it. I want to build it in production mode so that I will take the help of tree shaking and other stuffs, and my bundle size will also be very small in that case because I'm going to push this to the remote server, and I should not take more time to push the stuffs. So that's why I'm building it in the production mode. So all set. Okay, 92% is completed, and it generated something under dist folder called a dad joke folder, and under that you will see index.html, styles, main.js, everything. All set, right? So build is done. So I'm going to take the help of Firebase to deploy my app. Okay, if you are new to Firebase, Firebase is again Google's, I would say it's like a cloud API, I would say, which helps you to deploy your app, or it helps to host your app on server. And it also does a lot of other stuff like database, login. So I'm going to take the help of Firebase hosting here to deploy my app remotely. And I followed this link to install Firebase and to deploy the app. Okay, just you can follow that link as well, just in case if you are new to Firebase. Okay, and I installed Firebase node module already. So I'm just going to initialize my project to just let know Firebase that this is a kind of a Firebase project. And I'm ready. So I'm just going to say yes. And I need to choose hosting here because I'm going to host this app on my remote server, right? So I just selected hosting and clicked enter. And I'm going to use this existing project, which I already have in my Firebase account. So I go with use existing project. And I have two projects created already. One is that joke, and the other one is NGGAE app. That was a last session app. So I'm not going to disturb that. This is the app which I created today morning. Just the project. It doesn't have anything to that. So I'm just choosing that project and all set. And now I need to let Firebase know which output folder or which public folder needs to be pushed to the Firebase hosting, right? I'm just going to let know Firebase that please upload everything that is present under dist that joke. Okay. So everything present under dist that joke needs to be pushed to my remote server. Okay. And it asks whether I want to host it as a single page application. Yes, of course. And I don't want to rewrite my existing index.html because Firebase tries to create one. I don't want to allow Firebase to create one. That's it. All the configuration is done. And you can find that configuration goes within firebase.json here. Okay. And if you want to change something in future, you just need to change your dist folder just in case if you change project name or something. All set. I'm going to deploy this project to my remote server, remote Firebase server. And Firebase comes with a command called Firebase deploy. So just run this command, Firebase deploy. It's going to push all my content present under that joke. I mean, under dist folder, under that joke folder. And deploy is complete. And it provides a URL as well where we can go ahead and access this app. So just do control click, open it. OK, here is our app. And I'm just copying this link, and I'm going to share it in the comments so that you can also access this app right from your machine. Okay, so this is a PWA app. And let me see whether it works as expected. Yes, it fetches the joke when I click on this button. That's cool. And also, I'm also able to copy it to my clipboard. That also works great. And I'm looking for some good joke here. OK, so this is kind of a good joke. So not stock market, it's a stock market, chicken stock market. OK, so if I just want to share this on Twitter, just click on this share button. It's going to post this on my Twitter page. So just click on tweet. That's it. It got posted to my Twitter. And let me go and see the joke here. Yes, it got posted. OK, that's cool. So that's a functionality-wise check. let's go back to the PWA part. And here I'm able to see the plus icon, right? Install icon, and it says dad joke, and it shows the app icon as well. And I see two buttons here, install button as well as cancel button here. When I click on install button, it just installs that app, and it's run this app like a native app, right? Awesome, is it? And also it adds the icon to my home screen. And not only that, since this is a PWA app, you can find these apps under Chrome browser apps here. Okay. So okay, here it is. It's already running here. That's why it was throwing the error, because it's trying to hit two resources at the same time. Okay, so here it is running fine. And one thing I want to do is I want to check whether this is having the PWA compliant, right? So to do that, I just want to audit it first of all using Lighthouse plugin. Click on generate report. It's going to generate a report for me, and it just going to say whether this app is 100% PWA app or not. Yes, it's 100% PWA app. So if you see here, it uses HTTPS. So that is one thing. Okay, just a minute. Okay. So because of, I think, Firebase issue, connectivity issue or something, it's not rendering sometimes. Okay, that's fine. I'm going to run this audit report on top of this page. So generate report will get me the score. Okay, so it's almost PWA compliant. So page load is fast enough on mobile networks. And this is basically, I'm running it for mobile, right? So I just want to run it for desktop, because currently I'm running it on desktop, right? I just need to see whether this PWA is 100% PWA compliant with the desktop. Yes, it's running fine on mobile networks. It's running on HTTPS, and redirects HTTP traffic to HTTPS. That's working fine. And name equal to viewport is set, and it contains the text when JavaScript is not available. Just in case if JavaScript is blocked in your app, we need to display some text saying that please enable JavaScript. That text needs to be there in your meta tag. I mean, right under the meta tag. Okay, all these things are there. Okay, and you can go through each and every issue here, and you can fix it. So it comes with a default documentation as well. Like most of these things are like false positives, I would say. You can just ignore, and some has really the problem creating facts. Say for example, if you are having some redirects in your app, it's going to be caught in your audit report. You just need to fix that for sure, right? So that's it. So I faced some issue with this link, first of all. Okay. Okay, did we do anything wrong here? I think Firebase is having some issue. Okay, I think Firebase is having some issue because I'm seeing the app intermittently. And that's it. So we created the app and deployed to Firebase, and this is how it looks on desktop. And in mobile, you should see this link in the bottom that will just ask whether you want to install it like a PWA app. Okay, so do you have any questions on whatever we discussed? Okay, let me share this. Okay, so you have any question on whatever we discussed so far? I know we took like a couple of extra time here, like 16 minutes. I'm sorry about that. Okay, let me quickly go through the questions. Okay, can Angular PWA and lazy loading work together? Lazy loading. Yes, it should work together. Yep. Say Angular is going to work like an Angular app on your mobile or desktop PWA application. If it looks for any particular module and if it is not present for the particular route link, it's going to make a call to the particular module. It's going to download that, and for sure it will work. Right, but here we have like only one module, so I didn't put it in a lazy loading way. So PWA is a mobile app. A question from Thomas. I won't say it's specific to mobile. It's an app. It's kind of a native app. Looks like a native app that can run on any device, like tab, or even it can run on your TV, provided if it has a browser and that has support for service worker. Okay. And can I disable PWA on an existing app if needed through config? Can I disable PWA on an existing app if needed? Yes, you can do it. You can control your PWA from your server as well. So we don't have that implementation right now in the app, but we can implement it like for every 60 minutes or for every day, or even for like every 5 hours or something. You can make a service call from the service worker and to check whether the service call needs to be run every time, like that. And you can push some data from your server as well, kind of a notification or something. And that's what we get in desktop notifications, right, on the browser, like Chrome browser. You can do it that way as well to disable it as a to disable the PWA stuff and make it working like a normal app. So all you need to do to make it work like a normal app is just delete the service worker.js. It should work like a normal app. And okay, so what about access to camera in PWA? I really don't know. Haven't tried that yet. With native app, I think we can do it. Like React Native is having that ability, and a couple of other hybrid apps have that ability. Like from app, you can access, from JavaScript, you can access the cameras and other stuff, but that will work within the native app. I'm not sure about how that will work in progressive web app though. Okay, so if we change browser language, would the app support internationalization? Yes, of course. Or if you change the system language, what would happen? I'm not sure about system language, but if you change your browser language, for sure it will support the internationalization, because Angular app is developed on top of the browser's language, right? So are you still facing this Firebase setup complete error? Okay, let me do one more deployment just in case. /bad joke. I'm deploying it once again just to see if there is any issue with Firebase. Let me see if there are any issues with our code, just in case. There is no issue with the code. Okay, one last thing I can try. So I'm going to deploy it without generating hash. So that could be the issue, I believe. With output hashing as false. Okay, so it's okay. Let me check. We don't have any issue with the app though. If I try to run this app from light server, it should work fine in my local. So okay, so it looks like it's having some issue with Firebase. So let me delete this and recreate it from the beginning. Just bear with me for another 5 minutes. One last try. So okay, I think this is the issue. I found it finally. Firebase init. I think we should not allow the rewrite. It used to work, but somehow it is not working. This existing project. I'm going to use that joke. And gets to slash that joke. No. Just Okay, looks like something went wrong with the build process. So, okay, this is the issue actually. So in Fire, okay, in the dist folder under index.html, okay, I was saying Firebase configurations here. That was the issue. Okay, now it should work. Okay, in the meantime, I will go through. Okay, in the meantime, I'll go through the other questions as well. Okay, I was not sharing my screen. I'm sorry. Okay, guess what I was saying is the index.html, what I had within the dist folder, that was having the Firebase configuration. Okay, that was the issue. So now I do ng build -prod. So I'm just building the project once again. So with the output hashing as false. Okay, here it is building. Let me share this one. Okay, it completed. It generated the build, and you can see that here. And in index.html, you can see everything related to Angular now. Okay, so previously we were seeing the Firebase stuff. Okay, that was because accidentally the Firebase index.html got copied. So what I do now, I do Firebase deploy once again. So this just deployed the app, and give a couple seconds because it will take some time to deploy the app. Okay, yep. Now you are able to see the app. And sorry about that. The build process was copying something related to Firebase. Now access this link, you should be able to see the jokes. And now let's click on the report, generate report. This should generate the report for us. And it's 100% PWA compliant. You can see a green light for everything other than this Apple Touch icon, but that's fine. We are not targeting Apple now. We are just targeting for desktop for now. Okay. So if you need to fix this issue, you just need to add an icon for Apple devices as well. So the icons what we have here is for all the devices, but not specific to Apple, right? So Apple is always unique. So you need to generate icon for Apple as well and put it here. And that way this error will get resolved. And now our app is 100% PWA compliant and its performance is 91 score, and accessibility is 97, and it followed best practice. And SEO is 88 because it's Angular app, and we haven't not followed universal. That's why it is 88. Okay, that's fine. So we developed a progressive web app with the help of Angular PWA. And thanks much for hanging with me. And so do you have any questions still before we wind up? And do you want to share anything about this session? So which part did you like it much? So just share it in the comments. Like the talk from Pato, a quiz, the PWA part, which one you liked most? You can just share and I mean, you can even put it in as a tweet message for me offline, just in case if you don't want to put it here. And this video will be uploaded to YouTube, so you can watch it even after this session as well in future. And apart from this, we have our next event lined up for next week, and it's for Angular online meetup group. And here is the link, just in case if you are interested, please join next week. So we have Nishu and Gugan. They are going to talk about the Angular topics. So Nishu is going to talk about Angular routers, and Gugan is going to talk about best practices to be followed in Angular. So just RSVP for this event as well. And this event will also be YouTube live stream, so you can just join from the comfort of your home, right? And you don't have to worry much about security and the other stuffs with Zoom and other things. So I was having the plan to have it on Zoom, but later I moved it to YouTube live stream because a couple of audience asked to have it on YouTube live stream. Okay. And thank you so much. And if there are no any questions, I think we can wind up. So anything else before we wind up? Okay, this software is something new, so I'm trying to learn how to use it efficiently. Okay, so thank you so much for joining today's session, and please share your feedback like offline in Twitter, or even you can post it as a tweet. And I welcome you to join my next session on Angular by next week. And we have a couple of sessions lined up in future as well. So we have speakers from Australia and also from Ukraine. And we have some speakers from Accenture as well from India. And I will post the details on the events as soon as I set it up in Meetup group. Okay. So for now, I'm taking a leave from here. And thank you once again for joining. Have a great rest of the day. And good night who are joined from India and other parts. And good evening to those who joined from USA. Okay. Thank you so much. Thanks once again. Have a great rest of the day.